All right, we're going to get started in just a few seconds here. I'm going to pause this Irish music. I don't have any Scottish music, but Irish music and Scottish music sound nearly identical to me. So we're going to be playing a lot of Irish music during this today because this Singer 328K that we don't see very often, it's a rare machine. A lot of them have just fallen off the end of the earth and they're no longer workable and functionable. And so they get disposed of, they get recycled. And it's such a fabulous, fabulous machine from the 1960s. And I'm going to give you a serial number to look up. I want you to do some research for me today. And with the request of research, I'm going to give you the opportunity to win some stuff. Some Guggenheim professional tailoring shears, caliper, all kinds of goodies that I might surprise you with. So get ready for some fun today. And this particular machine is going to be carrying on a living legacy within the family of Jacob. Jacob, I met recently. He's from Virginia, and he's got so many memories of grandmother Sharon in how she brought creativity, love, and sewing into the family. And he wants to continue that on. How cool is that? A young man like this wanting to continue a living legacy to honor his grandmother, Sharon. It doesn't get much better than that. So we're going to be seeing this 328K do all kinds of fun stuff today. But I want to give you a little bit of work to do before I even turn the music back on. The work is, tell me what specific birth date this machine has, where it was made, and I've kind of already hinted at that, and how many were made in its production group class. Again, the smaller a production group class, the more rare a sewing machine is. Anything under 50,000 is a big deal. So let's look it up. I'll type it in the live chat, and let's see who can get those answers posted in the live chat the fastest, including leaders. And yeah, I'll see what I can give away today. Okay. I'll put on music because I'm going to be typing. You don't need to hear me typing. All right, let me pause the music. I see some new names in the live chat. I don't know if one of those is Jacob or not. Jacob told me he was going to attend the live stream today, but I didn't know if he would join the live chat or not. But it's great to see some new names popping up in the live chat. We've got a lot of people watching right now, and I know it takes a while for you to feel comfortable stepping out of the shadows, stepping into the light, and being seen and being introduced to each other. And there's a little bit of a risk involved, isn't there? A little bit of a risk when you step out of the shadows into the light, but it's so incredibly rewarding. You make so many long-lasting friendships. You have a chance to talk about the fabulous machines you have, like our friend that just mentioned that they have another version of the 328K, a green one. And I'm going to go into that a little bit more when I talk about the history of the 328K. They were made in a number of different countries with slightly different flavors. One of the places they were made, the green one, was made in Scotland as well. The UK, United Kingdom, and you all know that we have a lot of people that follow cow country over in the UK, including our dear friend Alex Askaroff, a legend in the vintage and antique sewing machine industry, a devoted follower of our channel. And I just love he and his wife, Yana, to death. I'm hoping that Susie and I will have a chance to meet them over in England, or that they'll come here. I've already told them we've got a guest room for them if they want to come visit. But there was a turquoise one made over in Scotland, and it was made specifically at the Clydebank, Scotland area, at the Kilbowie plant. Kilbowie is where the plant was, and it was located in Clydebank, Scotland. They also made a Canadian version, the 328J, and they also made an equivalent version in Australia, the 328P. So we've got two different models that came out of the UK by way of Scotland. We have another one that came out of Canada, and we have another one that came out of Australia, the 328P. It gives you an idea of how popular this machine was. It was offered as an alternative to the much, much more expensive versions that had a lot of the same characteristics, like the 401 and the 401A. You could buy it for a fraction of the cost, and yet it was built so much better in many ways. As I went through Jacob's machine, it is like a tank, and that's how they oftentimes referred to the 328K, is it was a tank. It was not heavy like a tank, because you're looking at a machine that on the outside is all aluminum, which means the portability, moving it from one place to another, is so much easier than a lot of the vintage machines. It doesn't feel like a boat anchor, but it's fully forged steel throughout the machine. So you can sew heavy duty like you're going to see us doing during this live stream today. We're going to be running this machine through the paces and really, really pushing it to the limit in a lot of these sew-offs. I also shared with Jacob that this machine is able to do a lot of decorative ornamental stitching. I've ordered those cams for Jacob. They're in transit right now, coming from California, and they're the cutest little type A disc that fits right in the front of the machine right here. I'll show you that when we get a little bit closer to the machine. And you can just sew up a storm with this from a decorative ornamental standpoint, along with being heavy duty as well. Now, it's interesting. Nowhere on the internet did I see mention of the size of the motor of this machine. Does anyone want to venture a guess? What size motor does this 328K come with? And it's the same size motor in some of these Slant-O-Matic machines, but only a few of them. So that'll give you a big hint that it's going to be a larger than normal motor, and that's how we're going to be able to mow through a lot of these heavy sew-offs, including about 12 ounces of leather, So I didn't see in the live chat, I saw that one of our friends had nailed the year and the location, but we also want the month and day as well. So I'm going to look at the live chat again, see if we captured that. And if it was that same person, I want them to reach out after this live stream so I can give them a choice of special gifts that I'd like to send to them as a thank you for jumping in to this impromptu contest. All right, just a quick pause. One of the things, and a lot of people don't understand, we don't have a lot of rules in our classroom. We don't have a lot of rules. We're kind of free flowing and easygoing for the most part. But one of the things that we try to avoid doing is devaluing vintage and antique sewing machines by talking about a wheel of a deal or a steal of a deal that we got on a particular vintage machine. We might have gotten it dirt cheap, but our message to the world, and it's been this way since this channel was founded, is that the intrinsic value of vintage and antique sewing machines is so high and so precious that we don't want to send a message to people that we got a machine dirt cheap, because then it devalues that machine. I don't know if that makes sense to folks or not, but it's kind of our message in this classroom is if you got a great machine, you can say you got a great deal on it. That's fabulous. We all want to get a great deal on anything we buy, but let's not mention the price. And I think Susie, one of the moderating team, had mentioned someone had mentioned a price, I think, of $40 on a particular machine that they purchased. That's a great price, but let's stay away from pricing the machines, just because those that are looking on and maybe haven't started sewing yet and are looking at starting a collection of antique and vintage sewing machines, we want to emphasize the intrinsic value. We want to emphasize the treasure of these machines, not the fact that certain people are, I'll just say it, certain people are ignorant and they don't know what they've got, and they offer it at a price well below what that machine is worth. So, with that said, I don't want to harp on it, but the moderating team is here to help us. And Susie is highlighting an opportunity for someone to go ahead and remove a comment. Otherwise, the moderators will remove it, where you cite a price. Talk all day long about a great deal. Talk about a wheel of a deal, a steal of a deal. That's cool. That's totally cool. But let's stay away from citing a specific price, just because we don't want to devalue these treasures. These machines, if they were made today, for example, this 328K, if it were made today, it would sell for right around $3,500. So these are things that we want to hold up like a banner, the value of them, so that the rest of the world that's getting tempted in stepping into the sewing space will realize that they're dealing with treasures, not trash. Okay, all right, enough of that blah blah blahing. But I just wanted to support our moderating team and taking care of the family and managing the live stream while I'm busy doing other things. And no harm done. But go ahead and drop that comment if you would, and let's focus on value and treasure, not on prices. Okay, yeah. All right. I'm going to say a good morning to everybody real quick. And again, don't take offense if you were that individual that, in good faith, shared about a great purchase that you got. Don't be offended by being called out about it. We just want to stay consistent in the classroom and lift up the value of these treasures because they are. And if you get a great deal, wonderful. You can mention that, but just stay away from pricing if you would. So again, don't take offense to that. We're just trying to, if you're new to the classroom, you don't know any better, right? You don't know any better. So, but let's go ahead and say some quick good mornings to folks. It looks like Teresa was actually the first in the classroom today, along with Tim. And we also have living an active 116. That's fun. Living an active 116. I don't know that I've seen that name before, but maybe they've been in the classroom before and I just missed it. Let's see here. Wow Chic of 55. That's fun. Wow Chic of 55. Welcome to the classroom. Great to have you here. And Susie Geller. Great to have Susie here as well, my wife and partner. Just seeing if there's anyone else. Oh, I see Jacob as well. Great to have Jacob, the new owner of this 328K, and the one that's going to be carrying on a living legacy for his grandmother, Sharon. Great to have Jacob here. I'm scrolling through as fast as I can, folks. Yeah. So this is, let me step over here on this side. I've got the camera in a weird position right now. I'm going to fix that pretty quick, and then I'll be able to stop stepping in front of the camera. But yeah, it's so much an honor to have everyone here today. Sewing used to be the central hub of every home. If you walked into anyone's home from the 1800s all the way to probably the 1960s, maybe even the 1970s, you would have seen a sewing machine somewhere in that house, maybe more than one. And you would have seen this particular machine from the 1960 time frame until around 1965. They produced this machine for only about 5 years at the Kilbowie, Scotland plant. And during that time, they didn't make a lot of the 328Ks. Their production group sizes were always small, as one of our friends had highlighted in the instance of this 328K that Jacob is going to be sewing on, only 25,000. And that, from a scale of a Kilbowie, Scotland production group size, is quite small. So they produced them for only 5 years. This particular one was born, as someone had already highlighted, on September 11th, 1962. So right in the middle almost of the production run for these 328Ks, this machine was born in Scotland. I love Scottish machines because if you ever watch the introductory video on the front page of this channel, it takes you on a tour of that specific factory. And I don't know exactly when that video was originally produced, but it's entirely possible when they show some of the rooms where the machines are getting ready to be loaded onto a ship and they're getting ready to be taken over to all the various places that they're going around the world, including the US. It's possible, if not this 328K, another one of the 328Ks made from 1960 to 1965 would have been in that room. And so we have a documentary that highlights the people that painstakingly by hand made each one of these sewing machines. And that's where I always say we're okay to be protective of that, that legacy of a machine that was handcrafted. It's not like the other machines today from the 1980s forward where they were mass produced. They were made on a factory line, and they were slapped together. And a lot of the machines now that you find in the sewing centers and at Walmart and other places like that, they're built with planned obsolescence in mind, that they're only going to run for probably about 6 months to a year. And then you throw them away, you buy another. You throw them away, you buy another. That's not the case with machines like this 328K that were handmade, and they were made with such a pride of craftsmanship that this machine is going to outlive all of us in this live stream. Unless unless there's somebody out there that knows something that I don't, which I doubt. These machines are just built with such a quality of care. They just keep on going with very, very basic maintenance. And the 328 series, whether it was made in Australia, the UK, or in Canada, they were built with the ease of maintenance in mind. And I bet you that makes Jacob smile, because Jacob's a busy young man. And he's like, I really need to know how to take care of this machine. I need to know what to do. Well, this machine is a godsend because it's so easy to maintain it. It's so easy. And I didn't have a chance to post the progress pictures that I took this machine through, but I'll get them up on Facebook later today. So make sure you pop over to the Cow Country Facebook page and check out the photos of me taking Jacob's 328K through an intense service and deep cleaning and getting it ready for this live stream today. An intense deep cleaning. It took me about 8.5 to 9 hours, I want to say. So the size motor on this machine, did anyone get it? I think I saw someone post 0.9. You're really close. This 328K, like its brothers and sisters, the 327K and the 328P from Australia, actually come with the same size motor as the 401A and the 401 that wwere made in Elizabethport, New Jersey, and also in I'm warming up today. They were made in New Jersey and made also in South Carolina, Anderson, South Carolina, the 401As. So this machine actually doesn't come with a 0.6 or a 0.7 or a 0.8 or even a 0.9 amp motor. It comes with a 0.95 amp motor, almost a full amp. One of the biggest motors that Singer ever put in any sewing machine. So you know right away that they designed the 328 series to be a kick butt, get it done, mow through it, utter maximum steroid power is what this machine is all about. And it's got such a light frame, being aluminum, but it just mows it down. And you'll see that when we get into some of these sew-offs shortly. So what kind of bobbin does this machine take? Does anyone know? Type it in the live chat if you know. What kind of bobbin? What kind of hook system does it have? Can it sew with twin needles? Or is it a single needle machine only? 3 questions to throw out there. Another opportunity to potentially win something. Every time I ask you a question, one person had written, I didn't know it was a contest. I give away stuff all the time. All the time. Attachments, needles, special gifts, you name it, I give it away. And anytime I ask you a question, consider yourself in a classroom. Consider yourself being asked by the proctor a question that can get you a special prize. Back in the day, it might have gotten you a piece of candy or a bubble gum or something like that. Here, it gets you a lot cooler stuff than that. So what kind of bobbin? What kind of hook system? And can it sew with twin needles? Is it able to sew with twin needles, this particular machine? One last question I'll throw out there for you. I talked about the 401 having a lot of the same shared characteristics as this 328 that was made in Scotland. Does it have a slant shank, a slant needle shaft, or is it a vertical needle bar on it. In other words, is it a standard vertical needle bar or is it a slant? Yeah, all kinds of fun things. Low shank, high shank, bobbin system, hook system. If you can nail any of those, I'll probably send you something special. So jump out of the shadows. I think we have almost 2,000 people watching right now. Jump out of the shadows, get into the live chat, and take a swing at some of those questions I just threw out. Some of those questions. Again, type of bobbin, type of hook system. Can it sew with a twin needle? Is it low shank or high shank? Is it vertical needle bar or is it a slant needle bar like the 401 that it shares a lot of the characteristics with? Okay? Yeah, jump in, have some fun for goodness sakes. Yeah. All right, let me pause the music. So I don't know who our friend is, but I love the fact that we're getting some new folks jumping in and just nailing the questions. And some of these questions are not even readily available when you do an AI search on this particular model. So these are folks that are genuinely passionate and love vintage sewing machines and are smart, and they've educated themselves on these models. So I appreciate having all of you in the classroom today, and just really jumping in with both feet and celebrating this fabulous 328 that was made in Scotland. Now, I'm going to do something that I normally don't do. I'm going to get sewing on this machine right away and show you the strength of this machine. Again, a larger motor than some of the classic Singer models that we show on this channel regularly. Bigger than the 201-2, bigger than the 1591, bigger than any of the Slantomatics except for the 401 and the 401A. And a couple of the Rocketeers were made with a 0.9 amp motor, not a 0.95 amp motor. So this is just a beast of a machine, and yet a beauty of a machine in its simplicity as well. So make sure, if you were one of the ones that just answered some of those questions I threw out there, please reach out after the live stream and give me some information as far as sending you something. And I'll give you a couple of choices real quick. Here, I'll put on some more music because I got a compliment that someone really is digging the music. I dig Irish and Scottish music as well. And let me go ahead and play some music. I'll show you some of the things I've got available, and then we'll kind of go from there. And I'm going to move the camera off of the table. I'm on a table today that is kind of a portable table, but it wiggles and jiggles when this machine really kicks in. So I want to move the camera off so you all don't get seasick. All right, a quick pause on the music again. So these are some of the giveaway items that I've got, along with Cow Country shirts as well. And I've got one of these shirts on right now that Susie made. Let me see if I can do it this way. Yeah, there you can kind of see it. We've got some with a cow on them, and we've got a variety of different shirts that Susie made. So if you would prefer to get a shirt or a hat, if you win one of the impromptu contests, then just let me know that. I'll be glad to send you one of the fun shirts that Susie made or a hat, or you can pick one of these items as well. Let me kind of scroll down a little bit. So if you're not familiar with Guggenheim, then Stephen, the spokesperson for Guggenheim, is probably dropping his mouth open wide right now saying, "What? You haven't heard of Guggenheim?" It's probably the best cutting shear that I've ever worked with. I have them on the desk next to the machines all the time. This is one of them out of the package here. Kind of see it there. The quality of construction, the more you use them, it seems like the sharper they get. When you're cutting through things like leather, it's like cutting butter. This is a genuine cowhide. Some of the sew-offs I did off camera. I'll just show you cutting through this. I can see where the camera's pointing. There it is. Okay. So cutting genuine cowhide is probably about 3 ounces all the way to the tip. No effort at all to cut through leather. No effort to cut through denim. No effort to cut through pretty much anything with these Guggenheim professional tailoring shears. These are 9-inchers right here, but I also have their latest, one of their latest versions, 11-inch as well. So 11-inch, 9-inch, and then I've got one of my calipers here. I use calipers quite a bit in the live streams. If you've been watching us for a while, you know that. They're a great tool to have in your sewing room so you can verify the size of bobbins if you buy them aftermarket, or you can measure different things on the machine to calibrate things. I've also got these mini screwdrivers as well, which I use them almost daily in the workshop. So between the Cow Country shirts, hats, 11-inch professional tailoring shears, 9-inch calipers, screwdrivers, I mean, if you need needles, I'll give you a pack of needles instead. But we just love to treat our guests with a certain amount of honor and reward them for jumping out of the shadows when we have an impromptu contest. And again, whenever I ask you a question, consider it a contest. I'm challenging you. I'm challenging your knowledge and your willingness to step out there and to take a risk of getting it wrong. Sometimes folks will guess and they'll get it wrong. Who cares? At least you tried, right? I'll probably mail you something anyway, even if you get the answer wrong. So don't be afraid. If you're in the shadows right now, looks like we got a little bit over 1,500 people in the live stream. If you're in the shadows and you're not comfortable yet, fine. But know that we're going to treat you with respect and honor when you step out of the shadows. Know that you're going to have a lot of fun making new friendships and also being able to share about some of the treasures you have in your collection as well, and the type of sewing you're doing, the projects you're doing, and all of that. And speaking of projects, let me show you a project that Jacob shared with me that grandmother Sharon did that he wore as a little boy. And he still has it, and he's going to be looking at probably trying to refashion it into something else. But it's a Noah costume that Grandma Sharon made. I'm going to see if I can show it to you on the screen here. Isn't that cool? Jacob shared with me that he grew up in a family that was deeply rooted in faith, which I think is super awesome. I think that's super great when you're raised in a family of faith and you're raised, knowing the value of having that faith and trusting in God and everything else that goes with it. And he says, I was deeply into the church and everything else. And Grandma made me this Noah costume. And she made it from, I think he told me it was a McCall's pattern. Let me go back to his notes and I'll share a little bit more about what Jacob shared with me. So you have a greater appreciation for the depth of this family and the significance of the step that Jacob is taking in continuing the living legacy of grandmother Sharon through this sewing machine that we're going to be sewing on today. So he says, let's see here. Yeah, he said that this Moses costume was made from a McCall's pattern purchased at Michael's store and probably right around 2003. And it took about 3 to 5 days from pattern to wearable, maybe a little bit less than that. So this was a pattern, this one of Noah. Isn't it cool that back in the early 2000s, they were still doing Bible characters through the McCall's pattern selections. And Grandma got a hold of it, and I don't know if he helped her with it or if she did it solo, but he wore it for a number of years, and now he's going to refashion it into something else that he can wear and potentially use. So a little bit more about grandmother Sharon. She grew up as the youngest of 3, and they were kids during World War II. And they were kids to a World War II vet and his wife. They grew up during World War II. Sharon and her husband, and he was a vet. And the family moved out of the Dust Bowl of Kansas for the sand and sunnier prospects of Florida. So they lived initially during World War II. They were up in Kansas, and then they moved all the way. That's a huge move, all the way down to Florida. And fast forwarding a few decades from there, she had a short-lived marriage. Things didn't go as planned, and she became a single parent. And in order to save money, as a lot of people did then, in order to save money, she decided to make a lot of her kids' clothing and did a lot of clothing repairs and a lot of the things that a lot of the folks did post-World War II because the economy was not the greatest. jobs were scarce, and things were tough. So Sharon was a thrifty lady. Grandmother Sharon was a thrifty lady. And that's kind of what Jacob saw growing up. He saw that his grandmother could squeeze a nickel and make a dime out of it. And she was just a lady that was wonderfully creative and crafty in creating things like that Moses costume. And Jacob also grew up in a time when crocheted blankets and handmade ornaments and crafts for all seasons were a common thing. And so he grew up in an environment where he really didn't fully understand it then, but he was being groomed and being fashioned into a young man that would have a taste for the finer things, the things that were not mass produced or manufactured, but that were creatively and lovingly made, as he had seen grandmother Sharon do on numerous projects as he was growing up as a little boy. And she also made souvenir patches that she would sew onto baby blankets, and just so many memories made together. And she would take little pieces of fabric and create Halloween costumes out of them and transform them into something new. And it's interesting, when Jacob and I first met, he had gone, and I'm not going to go into the details in depth, but he had bought a more contemporary machine secondhand at a thrift shop in Kingsport, Tennessee. And he got it at a fair price, but he didn't understand and wouldn't have known that it had been damaged beyond repair. The needle shaft was bent. It was a slant style machine from the 1980s. And the shaft that the needle bar travels in was also irreparably damaged. And so as I took this machine in for him, his first attempt to carry on the legacy of his grandmother, Sharon, I had to deliver the news that the machine, without replacing everything with a donor machine on it, pretty much, it wasn't going to be a machine that would serve him. And so I said, let me go into my personal collection of over 250 sewing machines, and let me see if I can find a machine that you will fall in love with and that you can carry the legacy of grandmother Sharon forward. And as I walked past row after row of machines in the personal collection underneath our workshop here, I right away zoomed in on this 328K, and I said, this is the one. This is the machine that I want Jacob to carry the legacy forward for honoring the memory of grandmother Sharon. And once we get all those other cams that are in transit right now, oh my goodness gravy, this machine is going to be able to lay down stitching, decorative and ornamental, that will make anyone envious of what this machine is capable of doing. Just unbelievable. Okay. Let me get to work on this machine now. And I've adjusted the camera so I can have it off of the table and zoom in a little bit more. Hopefully you're going to be close enough to see this machine doing the various sew-offs. But again, if you were one of the people that jumped out of the shadows and answered some of those questions, reach out after the live stream, either by email, by text, and let me know which item. And I'll get verification from the leadership team that who it is, what they answered, what they won, blah, blah, blah. And then you can make your choice: a Cow Country t-shirt, a hat, professional tailoring shears, micro screwdrivers, or maybe a mechanical caliper, which you can't even see. There it is. Or maybe a mechanical caliper is the gift that you want Susie and I to ship to you. And I don't care where you live. I've sent things to people in the Cow Country family as far away as Norway, Australia, Germany. We've got family around the world in 126 countries that watch this channel, over 4 million unique visitors that watch videos on this channel, and I'll mail it to you wherever you are. If you're on the moon, I'll find a way to get it to you on the moon. I hope you're not on the moon. But any rate, Join me as we begin to sew on this machine now. We're going to be sewing leather. We're going to be sewing alligator today. I haven't sewn alligator in a long time. And considering that Jacob and his family at one point were down in Florida, they're going to love it when I sew on this alligator. And we're going to be sewing in a circle at the end. We're going to be sewing denim. We're going to be sewing cotton. We're going to be sewing U.S. Army grade canvas. We're going to be sewing everything under the sun today to run this 328K through the paces and seeing how the Scottish made these machines to a level of quality and sturdy construction that you can sew with them for generations. And like the Guggenheim shears that I showed you earlier, they only get better as you sew with them with very, very basic maintenance. Okay, so let me put on a little bit of music. We'll get going on this. And I hope you're having fun today. I hope you're enjoying yourself. I hope you're learning some new things about the history of Jacob's family, about the history of this 328K. And yeah, and hopefully it's giving you a deeper appreciation for why I say these are just priceless treasures that we have the privilege of sewing with. And it's why we're so protective of the value of them, not letting the world devalue them. The world now has such a lack of appreciation for the things that are vintage and antique, unless they can make money off of them. They don't want them in their own collection. They want to buy something. They want to try to get it cheap, and then they want to try to flip it. That's not what we're about here. We're about people that fall in love with these vintage and antique machines, and they collect them for generations. As my friend in the UK says, Alex Askarov, he says, these machines that I've collected over generations are my retirement. They're my living legacy of who I am and who I was once I'm gone. And that's the level of appreciation and respect that I hope all of you, if you don't have it now, as you spend more time with us, you'll gain that appreciation and respect for these machines. They were just built as priceless heirlooms that would be passed on from generation to generation to generation. All right, a pause on the music. So I should tell you a little bit about the setup of the machine. I'm set up today with kind of my go-to needle. It's a Schmetz 9014 universal needle. I use them a lot. And over the years, as I promoted this needle, there it is right there. Over the years, as I promoted this needle, I've had contact with the Schmetz people, and they said, you don't realize what you've done for this particular needle. Out of all the needles that we offer, and Schmetz offers a huge variety of needles, specialty needles, industrial needles. because of the influence of this channel and because of the influence of all of you responding to what I've said, the Schmetz 9014 Universal Needle is the all-time bestseller and remains the best-selling sewing machine needle from Schmetz that they offer worldwide. So it goes to show you that a little group of dedicated, passionate people can influence the buying habits of people around the globe. Now people around the globe that never tried Schmetz before, maybe they were using Singer needles or using organ needles or whatever it was, many, many, many of them have now pivoted over to the Schmetz Universal 9014 needle. And that's what we'll be using in the machine today, along with our dual duty XP thread that I use quite a bit on this channel. It's available at most sewing centers. It's a great thread for not only machine sewing, but also for hand sewing as well. So depending on the project that you have, depending on what kind of repair you're doing, you can use this thread for either application and it works equally well. So, but what we're going to start sewing with right away is genuine cowhide. And this genuine cowhide is probably going to be right around 3 to 4 ounces of leather. I'll kind of hold it up to the screen. I can barely see my laptop screen. I hope that that's focusing in on it. We're going to do a single layer to start, and then we're going to jump it up to 2 layers after that, doing a straight and also doing a zigzag as well. Try to adjust my laptop screen a little bit so I can see what all of you are seeing a little bit better. Okay, there, I've got a pretty clear view of it now. So let me put this 328K to work from 1962. We're going to mow down this single layer. I'm going to add a second layer to it, and then we'll lay down stitching on that as well. When all is said and done, we will have gone through about 12 ounces of leather. That's thicker than the average belt that a person wears in day-to-day life. So sewing through a belt, not an easy task, but I think this 328K is going to get it done remarkably easy. All right, so blah, blah, blah. Here we go. And I got a real long strip so I can do a little bit of racing, a little bit of fun. All right. Make sure I got everything set up. I think I do. Can you see it? Yep, I think you can. All right, here we go. That was only about a quarter of the foot controller. Only about a quarter of the foot controller. Oh my goodness gravy. Holy mackerel. Wait until you see this stitching. Wait until you see this stitching. That's almost 4 ounces of leather. And this 328K just went through it like it was cotton, like it was a light cotton sew off. So here's our first sew off on this 328K from 1962. I'm going to do my best to hold it real still. And it goes on. 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 It goes on more. 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 Oh my goodness, that's a long sew off, isn't it? What fun. Unbelievable. I love doing long sew offs, don't you? It's fun. Now look at our lock stitching on the back, and that's a heavy nap. Genuine cowhide has a real heavy nap to it, and just absolutely drop dead gorgeous lock stitching as well. Come on, camera. Oh, for goodness sakes. This camera's, I've got it set to zoom right now, so it's having a little bit more trouble. Maybe if I do it further away. going to take my reading glass. I can't tell if it's out of focus or if my reading glasses are making it look like it's out of focus. There we go. Why does it get to the middle of that? It gets to the middle of that and all of a sudden it goes out of focus. That's so weird. Let me start from this direction. I'll back up a little bit. I'm probably trying to get too close because I've got the camera set to zoom right now. At any rate, it's absolutely drop dead gorgeous stitching. The top stitching, the lock stitching as well. So let's add that second layer now. We're going to add a second layer and we're going to lay down a zigzag on this second layer, going down these 2 layers of this genuine cowhide. Now look at it from the side of what we're going to be sewing through with these 2 layers. It's going to be right around 12 to 14 ounces of leather. The thickness is going to be about 3.5 millimeters, probably closer to 4 millimeters. So now let's see if we can lay down a zigzag with Jacob's 28K, and yeah, we'll see if that 0.9 amp motor can continue to impress us. Get this into position. And now I'll take you by the front of the machine to show you how easy it is to switch between straight and zigzag on this machine. Right here is going to be our main control center. I showed you a little bit ago that when I lift the hood, you can see that cam in there right now that's generating the zigzag. And we're going to have a variety of other cams arriving shortly that Jacob will be able to put into the machine to do ornamental and decorative sewing as well. But all we're going to do is move our stitch width from 0 all the way over to 4. We could go 3 or 2, but I'm going to go all the way to 4. So our stitch length is going to go to 4, or excuse me, our stitch width is going to go to 4, and our stitch length is already on 6. So we're going to have the widest and the longest zigzag that we can generate through the cam that's right there. Just like our Swedish machines, our Swedish beauties, those black cams that go in the back of those Swedish all have a zigzag that sets the swing boundaries. I've talked about that. It sets the swing boundaries so that machine can generate a zigzag and stay within the confines of the throat without hitting the throat plate. It's the same thing that this cam does right here, is it sets the swing boundaries for that needle so that the machine can zigzag but stay within the swing area. So you'll notice as well, I'll just show you real quick before I camera back, that because this was made in Europe in the Kibawe, Scotland plant, when you look at the stitch length controller, it's in both inches and also millimeters. So depending on your preference, you can adjust your stitch length controller to be in inches or to be in millimeters, moving it up and down. And as you move this all the way to the top, you're going to be sewing in reverse with a 328K. So reverse is all the way up as it is on some of the other singers. And then you can bring it back down into that range. At the shortest stitch, you're going to be able to generate right around 25 stitches per inch, depending on the feed factor of the material you're working with. But for our purposes, we want to get a nice, big, wide zigzag going down these 2 layers of genuine cowhide. And bobbin winding. I should show you that as well real quick. I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit here. But our bobbin winder, I love this. It's so simple. It doesn't have that kickback spring. You just rotate it down to the balance wheel, disengage your clutch, and when you're done winding, you just push it back up again. A number of the Slant-O-Matics also have this simple bobbin winding design as well, which I think is fabulous. Much less problems with it. Inevitably, with the ones that have the kickback spring, like the 1591, that kickback spring is going to break, and it's a booger to replace it. You've got to pull the entire assembly apart to do that. This one just keeps going and going and going, and eventually you might have to replace the bobbin winding tire, but that's it. The simplicity, again, in the way they designed the 328 series has the user in mind. They wanted to make life easy and simple. And that's exactly what they've done. Exactly what they've done. Now, I talked about servicing a little bit and the fact that Jacob wanted to be comfortable servicing the machine. The easiest way to get to the critical lubrication points, you can either lubricate right through here. There's one of our lubrication points. Another one here, here, and here. But you're not going to get everything if you lubricate just through these quick access points right here and over here. Ideally, what you want to do is you want to take the top off. And it's easy to take off. You take off this bolt right here, and you take out this bolt right here. One bolt, two bolts, and then the entire top lifts off, and you can service all of the moving parts with grease and oil very, very quickly and very easily. Put the lid back on, put in the first bolt, put in the second bolt, and you're done. And I would do that about every 12 hours of sewing, just to keep the machine running optimally. You can also take the faceplate off as well if you choose to do that. You can take out this one thumb screw right here, and the whole faceplate comes off, and then you can service all the critical parts that drive that needle bar down into the material. You can also take off this panel over here on this side. I might have to move the machine to show you. You can also take off the panel on this side to service the belt and the pulley system. Make sure that the machine is unplugged, because right here you have your electrical connections. And in order to take off the side panel to get to the belt in that, you've got one bolt right here and then one bolt right behind the edge of the balance wheel, right there where I'm pointing. So one bolt there and then one bolt right there. And this entire panel will come off, and then you can service the pulleys. Periodically, the pulleys on any belt-driven machine will collect dirt because the motor, as it's running, it sucks a lot of the environmental stuff in. If you're set up near the kitchen, or if you've got the windows open and it's a dusty day and you're operating your sewing machine, it's going to pull a lot of that stuff in through the motor, and it's going to stick to the pulley, the output pulley on the motor. And by cleaning that with a Q-tip swab and a little bit of rubbing alcohol, you're going to be able to keep that incredibly clean and gripping that belt so you can have the proper traction to go through heavy sew-offs like we're about to do in just a moment. So don't be afraid to do those three primary service areas. You also have a panel on the bottom that you can take off as well to service those pivot points on this 328K as well. You just tilt the machine back, make sure your presser foot lever is down so you're not putting force against it, and then you can look at all those pivot points underneath the bottom of the 328K as well for servicing purposes. And I could certainly do a whole live stream. I could do a whole live stream on servicing a 328 series sewing machine. Maybe I'll do that at some point. But I don't see these machines very often. And this was the only 328K that I had in over 200 machines in my personal collection. So they don't come up often, ones that are running well and working well. They're a rare machine. Okay. So now that I've done all the gobbledygook and the blah, 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 the only other thing I'll show you is that I'm going to make one quick adjustment. Right up here, we've got our presser foot control. There it is. And I'm going to give this about 2 turns before we try to do these 2 layers of genuine cowhide. I'm going to give it 2 turns clockwise. And if any of the veterans in the live stream want to explain what is the big deal about presser foot pressure, you might have a sewing machine or sewing machines in your collection. You've had them for years and you've never known that there was a presser foot adjuster on that machine. You've never changed it. And you've struggled sometimes with feeding materials underneath. You just figured it was the shortcoming of the machine, when in fact it wasn't the machine's fault. It was that you weren't maximizing that machine. Presser foot pressure is hugely important because it controls the stitch length through the feed factor. It allows that needle to pass through the material evenly and smoothly so you don't break needles. It does all kinds of things to benefit you in the sewing process along with stitch quality. And so you want to understand how critical it is. Otherwise, you're going to be setting your stitch length at the maximum and you're going to be getting stubby little stitches instead of robust big stitches because your presser foot pressure is inadequate. So those two little turns I just did clockwise are going to help considerably as we look to do about 12 to 14 ounces of genuine cowhide on this 328K. Okay. So I might even give it one more little turn. There we go. I'm going to pad my deck and give it a little bit more turn. And then I want to move this camera off of the table. Otherwise, we're going to get this because of this muscular machine going at it. There we go. Okay, I think that's a pretty good shot. So I'm set up for a zigzag now. Let's see if we can lay down a zigzag through all of this leather. And whenever you're going with a zigzag, you've got to realize that those support points, when it lays down the zigzag, you basically have three support points that are going to define that stitch. 1 point here, 1 point here, 1 point there. And as you're laying down that zigzag, if your tension isn't set properly, when you flip over that leather, your lock stitching is going to be loosey-goosey. So the other thing I'm going to do before I attempt this sew off is I'm going to go to my upper tension and I'm just going to modestly bump it up. I'm at about 6.5 right now. I'm going to bump it up to 7 just to give me a little bit of an edge in making sure that our lock stitching as we do this zigzag, because think about a zigzag like a bridge. If you think about a zigzag like a bridge, it's only got 3 points of support to define that stitching. Whereas when you're doing a straight stitch, it's in line and it's not moving that thread in an angular fashion. It's going in a straight fashion so it can pull that thread evenly going down. The zigzag doesn't have that support structure because of the thread kind of being suspended between each of those 3 points of contact. So the tension has to make sure, just like the trusses on a bridge, that it's tight enough to pull those stitches in and to give us good clarity of stitch. Okay? All right. So with that said, and all of that blah, blah, blahing, let me see if I can set us up to do a zigzag down through this leather. And I don't know if maybe I should take it together with a couple of these little clips just to keep it more even until we get some of that stitching laid down. All right. So keep your fingers and toes crossed. I did not try this off camera. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but it's fun, isn't it? When you don't know exactly what's going to happen. Yeah. All right. Let's give it a go. 14 ounces of leather, laying down the widest zigzag that this 328K can generate. All right. Take a deep breath, and here we go. I forgot to move the camera. Hold on. That's okay. We'll let it wiggle jiggle. That's fine. We'll let it wiggle jiggle. I'm barely giving it any gas at all. I'm barely giving it any gas. Look at that stitching, folks. Look at that stitching. It's unbelievable. You can't see it. Hold on. There it is. Unbelievable. One of the strongest machines that I've ever sewn on is this 328K. Unbelievably. Let's look at these stitches. Let's look at these stitches close up. I did a pretty good job of sewing straight. That's unusual for me. I did a pretty good job of sewing straight. So if Jacob decides he wants to make, let's say he decides he wants to make bags or wallets or something like that, knowing that this machine can go through this much leather with no effort at all, we could have probably done 3 layers, almost 20, 22 ounces of leather. It went through this. You saw it. It went through this like it was a hiccup, like it was nothing at all. And not only that, it laid down stitching that is absolutely brag-worthy. Look at this stitching. There goes the camera again. I got about 3/4 of the way down, and it's like, I don't want to focus anymore. I think I'm too close because I have it on the Zoom. Let me go back up a little bit here. There we go. "14 ounces of leather, folks. Thicker than the average belt." Unbelievable. Stitching that is absolutely crazy off the charts. Crazy off the charts. Now let's look at that lock stitching. How did we do? We made that little adjustment. We made that little adjustment with the upper tension. So we made sure that we could define that lock stitch and support those 3 bridging points on the leather. Let's see how we did. We're going to go all the way down. Unbelievable. Folks, I don't know how I could make it any better. You could certainly add a walking foot to this machine, but it doesn't need it. And look at the leather we just went through with no effort whatsoever. If you think that's an easy sew off, try it on one of your machines. Try it on one of your machines. I can't even tell you how excited I am to get this machine to Jacob. He's going to be able to sew anything at all. And this 328K will just mow through it. The other beauty of this 328K is because it has that horizontal oscillating hook. Because it has that horizontal oscillating hook, it doesn't have a rotary hook. Rotary hooks are problematic when it comes to, where am I? Aha. Rotary hooks are problematic when it comes to certain types of thread. When you get into the specialty threads, the fire retardant threads, when you get into the Kevlar threads, and some of the other more delicate, fragile silk threads can cause havoc in the raceway and hook system on rotary hook machines, because that rotary hook needs to bring that thread full circle. When you're dealing with a horizontal oscillating hook system, it's going to be rocking back and forth like a pendulum. And so it's able to be a lot more tolerant of those more fragile or those heavy specialty type threads that will gum up the works on a rotary hook machine very quickly. The oscillating hook system is one of the greatest inventions in the sewing machine industry to give you ease of operation and to give you the widest choice and selections when it comes to the type of threads you want to sew with. They're absolutely amazing and miraculous. They just don't run into issues with jams. They're like the original jam-free raceway that the Swedish came up with on the Swedish beauties. But this hook system is in a fixed position. It just rocks back and forth to create that sewing stitch. So I'm absolutely elated with having this machine available for Jacob when the other one didn't pan out, because this one is going to give him so much joy in sewing, and it's going to be so headache-free in operating it and maintaining it. He's going to have just a blast, just a blast. All right, let me get something to drink real quick to wet my whistle. If any of you have done public speaking before, it's very taxing and it puts a lot of stress on your voice. So I'm going to put on a little bit more music, and then we'll jump into our next sew off. Well, there, now I'll jump into it. All right, let me pause the music real quick. So it's great to have people in the audience sharing some of their experiences. There are a lot of companies right now, particularly the Singing Sewing Machine Company, that is marketing heavy duty machines. And I've actually tested a couple of these machines, at least one, a number of years ago on this channel. I believe I pitted it against, I don't remember, it was either a Class 66 or a 1591. The thing you need to know about these heavy duty machines is they market the fact that the inside carriage of the machine is a stamped type steel. It's a thin gauge steel, but it's steel nonetheless. And that's really what they get you to focus on is these heavy duty machines have a steel innards, steel cage on the inside, but inside of that cage area is the components of the machine that really matter. And those components include the worm gears and the drive gears and the main shaft gears and all the other things that will push that power from the motor down to the needle and give you the results that you either like or that you cringe over because the machine doesn't accomplish what you want it to accomplish. As soon as they move from metal gears to plastic gears and Teflon gears, they shorten the life of the machine by about 60%. Teflon gears are not designed to withstand the tensile pressure and the strain of going through a sew-off like you just saw me do on Jacob's machine like this. They're not designed to withstand that. They're designed for light duty sewing, cotton, maybe a couple layers of denim. But as soon as you push them beyond that, it starts to stress those gears and you'll start to actually fracture them. You'll start to wither off the edges of the gears. They actually start to grind against each other. And eventually you'll have a complete failure where the machine will not operate. And that's where I say, if you take one of these heavy duty machines that Singer offers at Walmart and other places like that, and you run it at a heavier level, you're looking at a life expectancy of about 6 months, maybe a year if you're really, really fortunate. So there's just no comparison to a vintage and antique sewing machine in the way they're engineered and built when you compare it to a machine like a Walmart Confidence machine or a Walmart heavy duty machine. There's just no comparison whatsoever. So at any rate, let me put on a little bit more music and then we'll jump into our next sew off, which is going to be alligator. If you've never seen me sew alligator before, you'll see it now. All right. Let me pause. Let me pause the musical real quick. So I've sewn alligator in the past. I've sewn elk hide. Um, any of those specialty hides that people come across. I would love for some of our friends that follow us over in Australia to send me some kangaroo hide. I've never sewn kangaroo before. That would be quite a hoot to try that. Or anything else that people come across. I've sewn snake skin before, I believe, on a live stream, but I haven't done alligator for quite a long time. So this will be fun. It's not a solid piece of alligator. It's an alligator topping, the top layer, and then there's a vinyl type mix underneath it. It's designed to, to make bags and custom type products where somebody wants to say, oh, it's made out of alligator. So it's a fun material to sew. It's got a little bit of, even after it's sat on the shelf for years, it's got a little bit of an oiliness to it when you touch it with your fingers. I don't know what that is. I guess that's the nature of what alligators eat. Any of you that have been down in Florida or other places like that have seen alligators. They're kind of garbage eaters, aren't they? And I guess that kind of comes through their pores and their skin and everything else. But let's see if we can go through 2 layers of this alligator. We'll lay down a zigzag on it. I've got my little clips in place with the hope that, oh, there we go. I've got my clips in place with the hope that I can keep it relatively straight. There we go. And I move the camera off the table again so it won't be jiggling, wiggling as we're doing this. But this will be fun. I like sewing specialty things. So if anyone has access, if you live in another part of the U.S. and you've got alligator skin or you've got you've got skin from a type of snake or some other critter, I don't know. Feel free to send it to me. I'll put it underneath the pressure foot and we'll see what we can do with it. Okay. All right. So let's put this zigzag down and we'll go to our next sew off after that. All right, here we go. I take my first little clip off and my second little clip. Aha. Getting a little bit of a pucker right there. See that little pucker? See if I can flatten that out a little bit. Yeah, I think I'm going to be stuck with a pucker. Let me see how I can do with this. Clip it way down here. See if I can at least keep it relatively straight. Well, I'd say it was relatively straight. All right. Oh, yeah, very nice thing going on. I think we did really well. Let's take a look at these stitches. I see at one point I had a little bit of a feed slip. I increased the pressure foot pressure, but again, if you don't have enough pressure foot pressure and you've got something like this that's kind of oily and slick, it might slip as it's going over the feed dogs just a little bit, especially if you're going at a higher rate of speed like I was. So we'll see a little bit of a couple of the zigzag stitches, but that's an operator issue. It's not the fault of the machine. I needed more pressure foot pressure. You see it right there. I'll show that to you when we get to that point. But let's look at this zigzagging. This alligator. Right about there. Hold on one second. Okay, I think I finally have it. I'm trying to get to the beginning. So you can see I started out at a more regulated, and speed is a factor when you're sewing when it comes to feeding that material evenly, especially if it's a material like this. I started out well, and then I got a little bit with the foot controller, and you'll see that has a direct effect on the formation of the stitching. It just doesn't have time. We'll go across right there. See that right there? That's a feed factor right there. All in all, I did pretty good in regulating speed, but I lost control that one time, and I paid for it. I paid for it with having a little bit of distorted stitch. The feed just slipped a little bit, and that's what happens sometimes. Right there. See that? Alligator is a beautiful material, though, isn't it? Isn't that lovely? I think it really is quite lovely. Yeah, you just have to tone your speed down if you're sewing with a material like this so that you can maintain that stitch integrity. Here's our lock stitching on the back. I just turned it over. Let's take a look at our lock stitching next. Absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous stitching. We'll get to that one point where the material slipped a little bit. Right there. See that? So our thickness on the alligator, when you look at it with the backing on in that, you're looking at right about there, probably around 6 to 7 ounces, 6 to 7 ounces of thickness. So it wasn't a light sew off. And again, because it tends to be a little bit slippery, if you decide to sew something like this, just really, really control your rate of sewing. Bring yourself down, to a pace where, especially if you're doing a zigzag, it has an opportunity to feed that material evenly, and then you won't run into the same challenge that I did in that one little spot right here, where these two layers of alligator kind of slipped a little bit. But all in all, just an absolutely drop dead gorgeous stitch all the way down, both sides, lock stitch, top stitch. So if you started your day today on Tuesday and said, I wonder if that guy's going to sew alligator. I don't think you started your day like that. You probably started your day saying, I wonder if we're out of coffee, or if I'm going to have a bagel with cream cheese. Instead, you get alligator. So I'm going to set that back by our leather sew off. And the two sew offs we've done already have really, really shown you, I think, the possibilities and the promise of this fabulous 328. Why was it made in Australia? Why was it made in England? Why was it made in Canada? Because it just sews so well. It sews so well and lays down stitching that absolutely is brag-worthy. Isn't that gorgeous stitching? Absolutely gorgeous stitching. All right, a little bit more music, and I don't want to inundate you guys with too much Irish music, but the machine was made in Scotland, so here you go. All right. Our next sew off is going to be U.S. Army grade canvas. I don't know if any of you watching right now in the audience are veterans, or maybe you have veterans in your family. We talked about Jacob's family and his grandmother and grandfather, who was a World War II vet. And so any of you that have served in the armed forces, whatever branch of service, if you had field duty, like I did, you would have seen material like this, either on your cots. A lot of the Army cots are still made out of this canvas material. The shelter halves are as well. And a shelter half is basically a hasty way of protecting yourself from the elements. It takes a couple of poles to set it up. And then that shelter half is made out of a heavy grade Army canvas like this. And it will protect you from rain. It's waterproof. It'll protect you from snow. It'll protect you from all kinds of things. When I was in Saudi Arabia, we would set these up sometimes to protect us from the sandstorms. So shelter halves can really be a godsend when you're out in field maneuvers in the military. But whenever it comes to something durable like this that can handle the elements like that, the freezing cold, the sun, the bleaching heat, and everything else, you know that the piercing threshold on this stuff is going to be very, very high. And we're going to be going through only 2 layers of it. Jacob's machine could probably do 6 to 8 layers of U.S. Army grade canvas. But I just want to buzz down this with a straight stitch and then a zigzag to show you what ease this machine with that 0.95 amp motor is able to do to anything at all that you put underneath the presser foot, whether it's U.S. Army grade canvas, whether it's leather, you name it. This machine is able to get the job done. So, and I left the rivets on there just to show you a shelter half. You can actually close it up around yourself, almost like a little mini tent, and you snap these rivets together. I left them on there just to show you that it really is genuinely a U.S. Army grade canvas material. It's not a wannabe. It's not a makeover one. This is the true stuff, and it's tough to sew. It's very, very tough to sew. So I'm set up right now for a zigzag. I want to go back to a straight stitch. So I'm going to take my stitch width. I'm going to push it all the way over to 0. Push it all the way over to 0. I'm going to leave my stitch length long. I'll leave it right around 6, but maybe we'll do a row with a little bit shorter stitch on it as well, just so we can do that as well to demonstrate it. So we'll start, first of all, with a straight, then we'll go to a shorter straight, and then we'll go to a zigzag, see if we can fit all 3 of those columns on this genuine U.S. Army grade canvas, okay? All right, let me get my camera up there so that I don't jiggle wiggle. There we go. All right, so straight stitch, shorter straight stitch, and then a zigzag. I'm going to try to pass pretty close to these rivets so that I've got enough room to lay down all 3 of those stitch columns, all 3 of them. So first of all, a straight stitch. And I say this all the time, but I can't say it enough. Just like presser foot pressure is critical, when you're launching a mechanical machine like this, make sure that your take-up arm right here is at the highest position, and it's just getting ready to do a down sweep. See, I've reached that peak right there. I've reached the paramount point, and now it's just getting ready to go on that down sweep. Ideally, whenever you can, you want to launch this way. It's going to free up the mechanics of the machine, and it's going to give you the greatest launch and the greatest success, especially if you're sewing heavier duty type materials like canvas, leather, or multiple layers of denim, possibly. All right, here we go. Row number 1. I might have a little bit of fun and go just a little bit faster, but I'm not going to go full speed. Otherwise, it'll just run right past the material, and I'll end up creating a mess. Okay? All right, here we go. U.S. Army grade canvas, 2 layers with the rivets in place. I better watch my steering, right? We'll do a straight stitch, a shorter straight stitch, and then a zigzag. Here we go. Slow down, Scott. Slow down, buddy. Okay. This is good. I love it when things happen like this. I love it when things happen like this because it shows you how critical upper tension can be. I'm going to go ahead and rotate that a little bit. We'll look at this in just a moment, but I'm going to tell you that when you're sewing canvas, because it's a woven type material, it's very dense, it's got a very high piercing threshold, you may have to make subtle adjustments if you're going to be sewing a lot of it. So with U.S. Army grade canvas, oftentimes the issue is not as much the locking stitching as the top stitching. So what we would want to do if we're going to be sewing a lot of this is we remember we bumped up our upper tension to 7 when we were going through those 2 layers of genuine cowhide, this stuff right here. When we were going through this, I bumped up the upper tension to 7 from 6.5. Before I did the canvas, if I had, a crystal ball, I would have bumped it back to 6.5, and then I would have even a better defined top stitch. You'll see what I mean when we look at it. But for right now, let me go ahead and clip it. We'll do a shorter stitch, and then we're going to go ahead and do that zigzag next to it. But as you're going through a live stream like this with a wide field of materials, you inevitably are going to be able to learn lessons about how that needle that you're working with, the setup of your machine, the type of thread you're using, will interact with that type of material. Sometimes you have to make subtle adjustments either with presser foot feed or with tension to get the best outcome possible. Okay, we'll do our next row now. We're going to adjust our stitch length down a little bit. We're at 6 right now. We're going to go, why don't we go to about 8 or 9? Let me see if I can do that. I'm going to unscrew this so I can move it. And I'll move it up to right around 8 or 9, right there. And then if you want to screw it back in, you can do that to lock it in place. Looks like it went up a little bit higher than I wanted. Let me come down just a little bit. There we go. So we're going to do another straight stitch now. We're just going to make it a lot shorter. There we go. And with all my blah, blah, blahing about the top stitch I'm looking at on these 2 layers of U.S. Army grade canvas, it's not a bad stitch. But one of the things I talk about in the classroom a lot is the CANI principle, C-A-N-I. And that stands for constant and never-ending improvement. We never, ever are going to get a perfect stitch. We're going to get gorgeous, drop-dead gorgeous stitching, brag-worthy stitching, but there's always ways to improve a stitch even beyond where you look at it initially and you go, that's a perfect stitch. I get that a lot from my featherweight owners, right? My featherweight owners are always going in their little circles at sewing retreats, sewing expos, and they're talking about their perfect stitch. There's really no such thing as a perfect stitch. There's always ways to make it better, whether it's a different presser foot attachment like a roller foot or a walking foot, a different type of specialty needle that Schmetz offers, or maybe a different type of thread. You can always make a stitch better, but you can make some gorgeous, gorgeous stitching in the process, can't you? All right, so a shorter stitch now. And I should show you the foot controller. This machine, interestingly, is set up with a Bakelite style foot controller, this one right here. It's got this tiny little button that I have to push with my size 12 shoes. And Susie's probably laughing right now. She's probably laughing because she always looks at my shoes and she goes, wow, do you have to like turn a corner early to make that? Because depending on the shoe that I wear either a 12 or sometimes even a 13 shoe. That's a big shoe. So you imagine trying to put a size 12 or 13 shoe on this little button. And they've got adaptations now where you can put something over the top of this and push more like on a panel, and then it pushes the button for you. Well, what's the fun in that? It doesn't give me anything to complain about then, right? But I'm trying to push this and regulate the speed with my big shoe. So understand that that's not the ideal thing to do. The other thing I'll say is it's interesting to me, any foot controller, I talk about this all the time in live streams, any foot controller should be rated appropriately to the motor. When this 328K was rolled out of the factory in Scotland in 1962, this is the foot controller that is direct wired to the machine. I didn't attach this foot controller. This foot controller is the original foot controller that came with this machine when it was born at the Kibawi, Scotland factory in 1962. The paradox is that with a motor in this 328K that is 0.95 amps, that means the foot controller should be rated at least to that. It's not. And that's where, as you're operating a machine like this, by factory design, this foot controller is technically under amperage for the motor that is built into this machine. And yet this is what Singer did at the factory in Kibawi, Scotland. They married this foot controller, which is 0.7 amps, with a motor that is rated at 0.95 amps. Not the best scenario. So if you're sewing with one of these 328Ks, whether it was made in Australia whether it was made in Canada, whether it was made in the UK, either version of the two that were made in the UK, the turquoise one or the other one, be mindful that your foot controller might start to get warm if you do sustained continuous sewing, because this is the gateway right here to your sewing machine. Electricity hits your foot controller before it ever hits the motor. So that electricity passes through here, it passes through this, and then from here, it passes into the motor. So watch that. If you're sewing intermittently, you probably will never have a problem. But if you're sewing continuously, long runs, just monitor your foot controller to see if it's getting warmer and warmer and warmer. Okay? And then give a break, let it cool down. You could always elect to swap this out with an electronic foot controller. You could always elect to swap this out with a Mercury style foot controller that's going to be rated up to 1.2, 1.3 amps. But I like to stick with originality. I believe that the people at Singer were probably smarter than I am. And so they had a reason for marrying a 0.7 amp foot controller with a 328K that has a motor that's 0.95 amps. But I wanted to highlight that for you. Not only that I have big feet, I do. Not only that I have big feet and it's hard to push this little button, but these aren't the ideal match that Singer did with this particular model. But again, unless you're sewing really, really long runs, you'll probably never have any issues whatsoever with it. Okay? I hope that info is helpful. If you're the owner of a 328, to just watch that. A lot of people will sew different ways in their sewing room. Some people sew barefooted, and you right away would feel that foot controller warming up. I've had that issue with some of my Husqvarna customers that have the 21As, the 19Es. As that capacitor starts to go in that foot controller, this foot controller doesn't have a capacitor, but the Swedish ones do. As that capacitor starts to go, that foot controller will get real warm. And those barefoot sewers, like my buddies down in Texas, they'll right away say, hey, my foot controller is getting warm. I better give my machine a break. Otherwise, they'll hear a loud pop, and then their foot controller won't be working anymore. So, just stay in tune with your machine. If you become intimate with your machine like most sewists do, you're going to notice things like that before anyone else does. It's kind of like driving your car. You'll notice subtle changes in your car that if you took it into the average mechanic and you didn't highlight that issue, the average mechanic would never catch it. They just wouldn't. But you do as the owner because you're intimate with your car, and hopefully you're just as intimate with your sewing machine. And you'll notice subtleties and changes in it. And then you can reach out to me and Susie, or you can reach out to someone else and say, hey, my machine has never done this before. Now it's doing this. What do you think? And that way you can head something off at the pass before it becomes an issue. You can catch it early and resolve it and continue to have happy sewing, right? Yeah, why not? All right, so let me do this next stitch line, and we'll sew a shorter straight stitch, and then we're going to move into our zigzag finally. All right? All right, here we go. Do I got the camera lined up? Yes, I do. Okay, perfect. There we go. Oh, yeah, very nice. Very, very nice. Beautiful stitching. All right, we'll do a zigzag, and then we'll look at all these stitches together. And we'll look at all these stitches together. And I didn't hit a rivet during the entire thing. Yay. I made it look easy.
That was easy. That was easy.
Yeah. So now I'm going to adjust my stitch width back to 4. I like wide stitches, so we'll adjust it back to 4. And that'll access this cam up here for the zigzag. I'm going to move my stitch length back to nice and long, all the way down to 6. So we've got our stitch width set now on 4. We've got our stitch length on 6. Let's lay down a zigzag on this genuine 100% Army canvas, heavy duty canvas. All right, trying to see. Yep, that looks like it's lined up pretty good. All right, zigzag now, and then we'll put this canvas away after we take a look at the stitching, all right? Here we go. And I'll try to regulate my speed a little bit better this time. That way I don't have any deformed zigzag stitches because of the feed factor. As a matter of fact, canvas isn't slippery like alligator, but I just bumped up my pressure foot pressure just a little bit, because with canvas, you're not going to have any puckering issues like you might with cotton. All right, here we go. That was a little bit of fun. I don't know if Jacob is a pedal to the metal guy or not, but he's definitely going to have the opportunity to do that with this machine if he wants to. And the other thing is, you will, if you don't have a foot controller matched appropriately to the motor, if the motor is going to be demanding more energy than that foot controller is really equipped to deliver evenly, you will have a little bit more of a race factor with that machine as well. And again, where it would be easy enough to switch this out if it needed to be done to a larger Mercury style foot controller, or even to an electronic foot controller. And then the pacing of that motor would be more in sync with that foot controller. Right now, that foot controller is having to work a little bit harder because of Singer deciding to match it up 0.7 versus 0.95. It's only 0.25 different. I get that, but it does have a weight ultimately on how that motor reacts to that foot controller. Okay, let's take a look at these stitches with all that blah, blah, blahing. So I'm holding it like this. We'll look at the zigzag. We'll look at the shorter stitch, the longer stitch, and then we'll look at the lock stitching on the back as well. And when you look at the lock stitching, you might see some of those tension opportunities I talked about, where you may have to make adjustments if you're going to be sewing canvas a lot. All right, let me go all the way over to here. We'll start and go across. We'll look at all 3 rows at the same time. Some really, really good looking stitching. Some good looking stitching. I don't know it was so straight, do I? No. And on that longer straight stitch, we could have a little bit of a tension adjustment there where that top stitch could be better defined. Yeah, there's always ways to improve the stitch, isn't there? Always ways to improve it. Now we'll take a look at that lock stitching. Let's see how our upper tension did with that lock stitching. I'm going to flip it around this way. Let's look at those lock stitching in these 4 rows. We'll see how we did on the zigzag. We'll see how we did on the shorter stitch and then the longer stitch as well. Yeah, all in all, some really good balance there. Some good balance. It could always be better. The zigzag is really spectacular, isn't it? It's really stunning. The straight stitching, we could certainly refine that if we're going to be sewing a lot of canvas. Yeah. So 2 layers of canvas. It's not a ridiculously thick sew up, but that's kind of what it looks like right there. So as you're sewing canvas, like any woven type material, you've got to be mindful of your upper tension settings. Also pre-calibrating your bobbin case as well. Bobbin case can be calibrated when you clean the raceway area. I should probably demonstrate that in a future live stream, how to tear this down. I showed it on a different style raceway, but similar to this. And that way you'll always have the best possible optimal stitch quality, even across a wide field materials, whether it's canvas like this or the leather that we sewed, or even the alligator as well. So these are the 3 sew-offs we've done so far. This is a strong machine, but I think we'll buzz down and maybe lay down some zigzagging on some satin. We'll kind of take it the opposite way and go a little bit on the lighter side of things. So I'm going to take a piece of this Christmas style satin and another piece of Christmas style satin. These are actually vintage, and I'm going to put them back to back, red and green. I always think of red and green as Christmas colors, don't you? And we'll see if we can lay down a zigzag, and I'll leave the rest once he gets this machine. We'll sew on the red side, I think. I'll get this into position. And I'll just buzz down and lay down a zigzag, and then we'll move on to, I'm sewing paper. I've got to do denim. I've got some other types of leather we can sew as well. And then finally, our finale of sewing in a circle, I'll do that probably to some Irish music at the end. So we're getting closer to our wrap up. Looks like we've been running about 2 hours. We'll probably wrap up in the next 20 minutes. And appreciate everybody joining us today. Wonderful gathering to get together on a Tuesday morning. I know how busy everyone is. And yet we have almost 2,000 people that have put their life on pause to celebrate this 328K that's going to be joining Jacob's family and continue legacy and tradition of creating miraculous things. I'm hoping that Jacob and I can stay in contact, and he can let me know some of the projects he's working on, and maybe even share some pictures that I can share with all of you during some upcoming live streams. But it sure is a privilege and honor to help him continue grandmother Sharon's legacy of creating great things for this family. Yeah. Let me see. Just checking my time, see how we're doing. Okay. Yeah, we got about 20 minutes. We'll wrap up. Okay. So I've got 2 layers of vintage stock. I'm going to be doing a zig on this. And the back of this is like nylon material. You can see that shininess. I'm hoping that these don't slip a lot as I'm sewing them. I think I'll be okay. But these tend to slip as you're sewing over them. Maybe I should just clip them as a precaution. We'll try to keep them together a little bit. These little clips maybe will feed it just a little bit more evenly. Okay, so a zigzag, and then we will move on to some other materials. Okay, you ready? Here we go. Yeah. Oh, very nice. Very, very nice. I've created the illusion of sewing straight. Thank goodness for those little clips. I believe those came from Paula Noel from West Palm Beach, Florida. Sent me those clips a while back. All right. So if you haven't sewn satin before or silk, it can be as much of a challenge as leather, but in a different way. Let's take a look at these zigzags, see what we think. This is our top stitching here on the red material. Hopefully the camera can pick that up. Waiting for the camera to focus. There we go. The formation of those stitches is absolutely as it should be. The spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch. On a delicate, slippery satin like this, with that, you can see the backing right there. See the backing right there, that green backing. It's real slippery stuff. And yet we laid down an absolutely drop dead gorgeous zigzag on this satin material. Wow. That is really, really a good looking stitch. Now let's look at the green side. This is our lock stitching. How do we do on our lock stitching? Did upper tension do its job? It looks like it did. Beautiful, beautiful stitching. I said there isn't a perfect stitch, but if there were a perfect stitch, that's pretty close to it right there. Beautiful formation on that zigzag. Yeah, very, very nice. Lock stitching and our top stitching. So we've gone from super heavy duty. We've gone from super heavy duty right here with about 14 ounces of leather and U.S. Army grade canvas and alligator. And now we've gone to the light side with a satin material, a vintage satin material that, I mean, you can't get much lighter than satin or silk, right? Probably can, but we've covered the spectrum, haven't we? And that's really what I like to do in these sewing live streams is I like to cover a wide scope of materials so that if a customer has never thought about using a particular type of material with that sewing machine, all of a sudden it opens their eyes and they say, gee, many crickets, I never thought about sewing denim on that before. Most people have. Or I've never thought about sewing leather with this machine before. I didn't even know that it could sew leather. And yet all of a sudden you discover something new. You discover something new that you didn't know about a particular sewing machine and its capabilities. That's really what these live streams are, is to open your eyes to new possibilities of how you can use the machines that you have. Now, because of the way I prepare the machines, your machine may not be able to do everything that Jacob's can, but you can give it a go, give it a try, and you can always send the machine here to the workshop so I can optimize it and spend 8 to 10 hours on it. If you go to a local sewing vac, they're going to spend about 30 to 45 minutes on your sewing machine. I'm not making that up. So would you prefer that a precious treasure of a vintage or an antique sewing machine gets the care that it needs of 8 to 10 hours of servicing and optimizing, or 30 to 45 minutes? You make the call, and then you can let us know. How about a little bit of Latino music? I love Latinos. Yeah. Actually, Brazilian. I apologize. Brazilian. I think I was overambitious and I cut this denim just a little bit too long. I'm going to take my Guggenheim shears, cut it down about 3 or 4 inches so it's only about a foot long, and then we'll go through 8 layers of denim, okay? All right, let me pause that. So 2 layers, 4 layers, 6 layers, 8 layers. Oh, heck. Let's go ahead and do 10 layers of denim. What do you think? Should we try 10 layers of denim? That's 8. Here's 10 layers of denim right there. I don't even know if we can get that underneath the presser foot. Maybe. Let's see if we can. That's going to be real snug. Maybe 10 layers is too ambitious, huh? I might try it anyway. I think we can pull it off. I think we can pull it off. Now, when would you ever, I'm asking the audience right now, when would you ever go through 10 layers of denim? Is that even a possibility? Or am I just too much of a showman that I want to show you that Jacob's 328K can do 10 layers of denim? Do you ever sew 10 layers of denim, maybe making a bag? A certain type of specialty bag, you might have up to 10 layers, but it's probably not going to be all denim. It's going to be a liner and other things like that, right? But isn't it cool to know that you possibly can sew through 10 layers of denim? Now, if I fail, then I'll drop us to 8, but I want to try 10. I want to try 10 layers of denim. I don't think I've done 10 layers of denim in quite a while. I'm going to bump my presser foot pressure up. I just bumped it up about 2.5, 3 turns. I'm going to stick with a zigzag, see if we can pull off a zigzag on 10 layers of denim. I'm going to try to regulate my speed as best as I can. And realize we've already run this needle through quite a bit. It's a Schmetz needle, right? Schmetz 9014 universal needle. We're going to be trying to go through 10 layers of denim. Is it too much? Maybe. Will it break the machine? Nope. Will it break me? Maybe. Let's see how we do. I'm going to clip these together, give myself a little bit of an opportunity to try to keep these together. Whoa, that was weird. Did you see that? This thing just blew up. Because it's so thick, I just broke a clip trying to clip 9 layers of denim together. Yikes. That goes in the garbage. Maybe I have to go to the big clips. Hold on a second. I've got to go to the industrial size clips now. Because these little clips are just, they're going to break, every one of them probably. Then Paula Noel from West Palm Beach, Florida will be mad at me that I broke all of her clips. All right, so I'm going to pull out some big boy clips here, or big girl clips. Those right there. See if this will stand up to 9 layers of denim. All right, I'm going to use 3 of them. Put one right there. Put one right about mid-range. And put one near the end. I did not try this off camera, so I've already broken one of Paula Noel's clips. Let's see what happens now. 9 layers of denim, y'all. 9 layers of denim. Laying down a zigzag nonetheless. All right, here we go. Fingers and toes. All right, 328K. You are mighty. You are strong. You are unstoppable. You are majestic. You're Scottish, for goodness sakes. Do I need to say anything more? Come on, get it done. Stop all the whining and just go down these 9 layers and make it happen. All right, here we go. Come on, come on, come on. That a boy. Come on, there we go. Yeah. Well, apart from a little bit of puckering, because yeah, I mean 9 layers of denim, that's a lot of denim. That's a lot of denim. That's worse than 140% tariff, for goodness sakes, if there is such a thing. But let's see if we got through it, number one, and let's see if we maintain decent stitch formation and quality going through that much denim. 9 layers is probably, well, I could use a mechanical caliper and tell you. 9 layers of denim is probably the equivalent of 6 or 7 millimeters thickness. Let me see. Let me grab a caliper. Measure it at the widest point. Oh, wow. Almost 12 millimeters. Almost 12 millimeters thick of denim, 9 layers. 12 millimeters. Wait, no, I'm looking. Yes, yeah, that is 12. Okay. 12 millimeters thickness. Holy mackerel. That was a sew-off, wasn't it? That was a sew-off, and yet Jacob's machine didn't bog down.
That was easy. That was easy.
It made it look easy, didn't it? Let's take a look at these stitches. Through 9 layers of denim. This is our top stitching first. And I had a little bit of feed factor, but oh well. With nine layers of denim, I guess that happens, huh? Other than not sewing incredibly straight, folks, those are some beautiful looking zigzags through those 9 layers of denim. Beautiful looking zigzags. Come on, camera. Come on. That's a long sew off. That's like 12 inches long, y'all. That's like 12 inches long. Let's take a look at the zigzag on the back, the lock stitch. Look at that as I'm rotating it around. That's our lock stitch right there. Let me just spin it around like this. Here's our lock stitching on the back. Yeah, I mean, other than the wrinkling in that, which I'm not surprised, for goodness sakes. We don't have a roller foot. We don't have a walking foot. But 9 layers of denim, probably 14 millimeters thick, and laying down stitching like this. No skip stitches. No malformed stitches. Just a crazy amount of denim that we just went through. Top stitching, lock stitching. That is the big mama, if you'll allow me to say that, That is the big mama of sew-offs right there. Look at that from the side. So if you wondered if the 328K is a strong, muscular machine, you know now, between the 9 layers of denim right there, the 14 ounces of genuine cowhide, the 2 layers of army canvas, the alligator on the light side, the gorgeous zigzag stitching that we did on the satin material. That's our sew-off sandwich for this live stream right now. There it is. What a fabulous, fabulous machine. And again, you don't see these 328s very often. A lot of them have fallen into a dark hole somewhere. They're no longer functionable. They're no longer, they're just not around. You see a lot of 401s, a lot of 404s, 403s. You don't see these very often. We have just a couple more sew-offs I'm going to do. I've got a lot more I could do. I've got Amazon packing parchment paper. If anyone has a preference, I can do Amazon packing parchment paper. I can do some of this protected full grain leather. I can do some of this hardened, fortified type leather, this stuff right here that's used in the heaviest of leather applications. These are our last 3 sew-offs before I sew in a circle and have a little bit of fun, hopefully not sewing over my fingers. And this is Italian leather. We'll be sewing Italian leather last. So if anyone has any opinion, fortified hardened leather, protected full grain leather, or Amazon packing parchment paper. If we do the Amazon packing parchment paper, we'll probably do about 12 layers of it, something like that. So chime in. I'll look at the live chat. Chime in if you have a certain strong feeling about what you want to see in these final sew-offs. Otherwise, I'm just going to make it happen. Okay? Song goes on forever. Hard leather. Let's do hard leather. Okay, cool. All right, let's pause that. So we have a number of people that want to see the hardened leather. It's fun stuff to sew through because it's so dense, really rigid. We'll see if we can lay down a straight stitch on it, and then we'll lay down a zigzag next to that on this hardened leather. And I don't know if I get really crazy after doing 9 layers of denim, if I get really crazy and wild, like I sometimes do when I'm drinking Diet Coke. Yeah. Now you know my secrets. Susie gave me a Diet Coke and it makes me do wild and crazy things. We go through this hardened leather and it's too easy for this 328K. I might just add the protected full grain leather to it and we'll go through both of them. Yeah. I don't know. I might get the chainsaw out and cut down a tree and we'll sew through a tree with Jacob's machine after that. We might just take the live stream outside on the property and sew through a tree. Yeah, I might do it. Don't push me. I might do it. It might happen. All right, let me put this on pause. Let's do, and I'm joking, we're not going to sow any trees. We might. Okay, I'll check with Susie and see if we have any trees we can sow on a future live stream. We might just do it. Go right through a log, like, you never know. All right. So straight stitch, zigzag, and we might even add another layer of leather to this on top of it. So, all right, you ready? All right, here we go. Yeah, kind of throttled it up and down a little bit there. Throttled it up and down. We're just going to go and do a zigzag, and we'll look at both rows at the same time. All right, let's lay down a zigzag now. And again, all I'm doing is changing the stitch width. You saw me do that a couple times. We'll change the stitch width, and now we'll lay down a zigzag next to this. All right, here we go. All I can say is,
That was easy. That was easy.
that was way too easy. This is a monster of a machine when it comes to strength. It truly is. All right, let's take a look at the stitching, and then maybe we'll do something outrageous like add another layer of leather to it. I don't know. All right, so straight and zigzag stitching through this hardened leather. Come on, camera. There we go. Thank you, camera. Thank you. Oh my goodness, that's gorgeous stitching. Oh my goodness. What? Oh, wow. Wow. What? Wait, let's start over again. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Look at the thickness of this stuff, too. Look at the thickness of that from the side. Here's our lock stitching on the back. It looks like we might have needed just a little bit more upper tension for this leather. Let's look at that. Yeah, we needed a little bit more upper tension to tighten up those loops a little bit more. Check them out. See how we have a little bit of tilting on the stitches? That's an upper tension issue that we could solve very easily. So some absolutely gorgeous stitching, and what we've discovered about the hardened leather is with a hardened leather, we're going to have to increase that upper tension to define those lock stitches just a little bit better. Kind of like we noticed about some of the peculiarities of sewing the U.S. Army grade canvas as well, but some absolutely lovely, lovely stitching. Top stitching is bang on. Top stitching is exactly as it should be. The lock stitching, we could do just a little bit better with our straight stitching by bumping that upper tension up. It's generally an easy fix. We would go from, I think we're at 6.5 or 7 right now. We might go up to 7.5. And with this particular upper tension, you can, when you're reassembling it after cleaning it, you can pre-calibrate it so that you have a little bit more added tension on the front end before you have to adjust that dial. That's certainly something I could do as well. If Jacob's going to be doing a lot of leather sewing, heavier leather like this, I can recalibrate that up a little bit, but I don't think it would be necessary. It's just a subtle adjustment on there, and then we can tighten it up dramatically on here. And it still is a good looking stitch, but when you see a little bit of a waver like that, Where is it? When you see a little bit of a waver or a tilting of that stitch on the lock stitch side, that's a product of not having enough this. You got to increase that up. And what it'll do is it'll straighten those stitches out and put them in perfect alignment. You just don't want to go too far because then you'll start to affect your top stitching. You got to go in subtle increments and then see what impact it brings and then go ahead and adjust again. The other thing you can do is when I showed this in that recent live stream, when you're calibrating your upper tension like this, you can also choose how strong of a sweep you want on that check spring. When you're reassembling this, depending on how far you rotate it down on those teeth before you bring it past that resting ledge, you can bump up. Usually you want to be around 3 ounces. But if you're going to be sewing crazy leather with that sewing machine most of the time, you could always bump this up to about a 5 ounce return. So it's going to be pulling that thread on the bottom of the material with just a little bit more force as it sweeps up and down. Just a little bit more force as it sweeps up and down. And that'll help you quite a bit in not having to make as many tension adjustments if you're sewing super heavy duty leather like this. This is about as heavy as it gets with this stuff right here. Where is it? There it is. And you can see our bobbin case in the Raceway is doing a spectacular job of giving us a gorgeous, gorgeous top stitch. Gorgeous top stitch. Yeah. So just understand, I had protected leather to it, but what's the point? You already know that this machine is a beast, right? It's already a beast. So why don't I set up some music and we will do our final, well, how much time do we have? I really want to do Amazon packing parchment paper, but maybe we'll save that for the next one. Maybe we'll save that for the next one. Yeah, we'll go in a circle now. All right. We'll get our Italian leather out, and I'll get some fun music on. I want to thank everybody for joining us today, especially the new folks. It's so great to have you here. It's such an honor to have you join us for this live stream, along with the hundreds and hundreds and thousands of other folks that have joined as well and will be watching this later as a video. Privileged to have Jacob give me the opportunity to prepare this machine so he can carry the legacy of grandmother Sharon and just do some great things for his family. We're going to be back to the holidays soon, and as we get closer to the holidays, Jacob by then will know this machine inside and out, and he'll have an opportunity to do a lot of fun things to dazzle his family. And also, I'd like to see when he makes that remake. If you joined us late, you may not have seen this, but this is one of the projects that was done early on by grandmother Sharon. Make sure I'm getting that right. Hold on one second. Yeah. I deal with so many customers. I wanted to make sure I was getting everything right. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so if you didn't see it before, here is, where did I put it? There it is. Here's one of the outfits that grandmother Sharon made for Jacob. It is a Noah suit that was made with McCall's pattern. And he's planning on reworking this. And I'll be interested to see what he does with it. I'll be really interested to see what he does. Okay, let me find some fun music and we'll do this final sew off. And again, thank you to the leadership team as well for taking care of the family. Thank you to everybody. These live streams wouldn't be possible without all of you. And as you get more comfortable, if you're one of those 1,500 people that are in the shadows right now, As you get more comfortable and you realize we're a nice group of people, we don't judge, we don't get critical, we don't get nasty. The moderators won't allow that, I promise you. We're very kind folks, and we love vintage sewing machines and antique sewing machines. As you get more comfortable, step out of the shadows and join us in the live stream. Would you? Join us in the live stream, and we would be honored to have you as a part of the family. Okay? All right, let me see what I can put on here. I might go with Latino music. Hold on. No, that's not Latino music. How about this? It almost sounds like Irish music. Come on, where is it? All right, give me something fun. Come on. No, not that. That's not fun. No, that's too quiet. I don't want people are going to go to sleep. That's like you're in an elevator. It's beautiful music. I love it. It's beautiful music, but it's elevator music. I want something fun. I want something peppy. Give me something peppy. Come on. Oh, come on. No. No, that's the marching music. I don't want that either. No, that's guitar music. Come on, give me something here. We're going to all fall. Okay, I'll do this. It's not what I was looking for. But here we go.